My brothers and sisters, Yahuwah nowhere speaks of making Christmas a part of his followers, nor does he say to celebrate his son's birth. He does tell us, though, not to add to his worship anything that is a tradition of the heathen. Such additions hinder rather than enhance our journey to Yahuwah's kingdom. What are the fruits of keeping Christmas? Has Christmas helped to glorify Yah? Has it clarified and aided man's spiritual life? We have a record of the fruits of Yehudim additions. Their intent may have been better than those who accepted Christmas into Mashiachim, since they at least attempted to obey the law of Yah. Still, when Yahusha walked among them, they did not recognize their own Mashiach. Adding to and subtracting from Yahuwah's word changes Yahuwah's intended focus. Christmas is no better. When the so-called believer added Christmas to their way of worship, it had nothing to do with true believer worship at all. It was a ploy to win converts from paganism. It was a deliberate grab for power. From the beginning, Christmas, rather than promoting the true Elohim and his way of life, has only led people away from the truth. Peter writes that we are redeemed from these very traditions. These traditions, inherited from our fathers, are part of our culture. Yahusha used his ministry to repudiate every addition, subtraction, and distortion that had attained any kind of specious divine authority. And he did this by clarifying and magnifying the truth. Christmas seems to have divine authority because claimed believers are doing it. But it is part of a world that is anti-Yah, anti-Mashiach. It is not a part of what Yahuwah has shown is true. The word translated walk is halakha in Hebrew. Yasharal had to walk in the way. The Interpreter's Dictionary of the Bible, Volume 2, reads under Judaism: the authoritative Jewish way of life as expressed in moral law and ritual precept. It embraces the whole body of Jewish teaching, legislation, and practices that proceed from interpretation and reinterpretation of the laws of the scriptures. Although legalistic in content, the halakha is designed to bring all human occupations into relationship to the service of Yahuwah and to establish the supremacy of the divine will as the measure of all directions and strivings of human life. On the surface, this sounds good. We should search and meditate as to how the scriptures apply to every aspect of life. However, these interpretations were merely human opinions. Some of them were right on, but others were grossly off the mark. The halakha was not the word of Yah. Over the centuries, the Jews first gradually elevated these interpretations to be equal with Scripture, and then to be more important than Scripture. Mark 7:3 describes such a tradition that did not come from Yahuwah's law, but from halakha. Yahusha says that they rejected the commandments of Yahuwah so that they might keep their own tradition. He also said their traditions destroyed the effect of Yahuwah's word. Halakha was their tradition, the Yehudim way of life. In addition, not only were they zealous in collecting these interpretations, and putting them into books, but in their zeal, they encouraged each other to live rigidly according to these interpretations. They were also zealous and proselytizing. Yahusha says in Matthew 23 that they would encompass land and sea in order to gain one proselyte, and then they would make him a child of hell. It became a major problem for Yahusha and the called out assembly when the Yehudim did not have the humility to admit that many of their interpretations were wrong. They did not agree with Yahuwah's word, and they viewed Yahusha and then the called out assembly as enemies to be obliterated. Halakha, the Yehudim way of life that Paul called the traditions of my fathers in Galatians 1:14, had been his religion. It was in question in the book of Galatians, not the law of Yah. It was the Yehudim way of life, the halakha, with ascetic, demon-driven Gnosticism added to it. This was the yoke of bondage that could not be borne. Shalom.